Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is your host Carmina, and today we are going to be diving deep into the meaning of planetary symbols or planetary glyphs. But before that, let me just remind you guys, especially the new guys watching on this channel, we have over 200 videos on astrology, card reading, and human design. So make sure you check them out, and while you're at it, you can also hit the subscribe button. Okay, that being said, today's topic, the meaning of planetary symbols. We as people interested in astrology work with the planetary symbols. You know, those little hieroglyphs that designate the planets, right? Planetary glyphs. So we do that, but sometimes we don't really wonder like who drew those first. What is their actual meaning? Is this scientifically, worldly recognized symbol, or is it just some newly invented mumbo jumbo? And I'm here to shed light on all of that. So I was curious if NASA had anything to say about the planetary glyphs and symbols, because they're a pretty established astronomical organization. And what I noticed was they do have a page on their website dedicated to just that. I'm just going to show it somewhere here. And they do have some explanations. They relate most of their explanations to the Roman gods and to the Greek gods. But I'm not really buying it. I'm not really satisfied. I'm not really buying everything that they're selling, because some of these explanations are very brief. For instance, they say, oh, the moon is a crescent, and that's it. Okay, so thanks. I think there can be more to that, right? Especially because these glyphs, these symbols were created way before NASA was created. These symbols were used in alchemy. The Mars and Venus symbol, they were used by rock star botanist Carl Linnaeus. He's the father of modern botany classification and of taxonomy. He actually is the guy that coined Mars as the male symbol and Venus as the female symbol. When you open up a book on animals or botany or amoebas or stuff like that, and you see the genders, male or female, you see a Mars and Venus symbol. Well, you can thank Carl Linnaeus for that. I'm just going to post this picture here because he was such a celebrity and so admired in his day. Like Rousseau and Goethe were writing raving reviews about the work of this guy. That parenthesis aside. So let's just look at the celestial bodies, and not only, we're also going to be looking at the nodes. And let's see what the meaning could be. And before that, I'm just going to say this. If you look at all these symbols, if you gather them together, I did some drawing there, and I'm just going to show you here. If you put all these pictures together, you see that they're quite simple because they're made out only of a few elements. They're made out of circles, they're made out of crosses, and you also have semicircles. So we see a pattern there, right? The semicircles could be facing either way, as we'll see later. So what is that exactly? What is the circle? If we think of the esoteric meaning of the circle, what is a circle? The circle is the perfect shape, it's endless. So we can think of it as spirit, right? It's like something endless, some universal consciousness, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. It's something infinite, something endless. That's the circle. And then we also have the cross. That's like the cross of matter. That's something very targeted. That's like very concrete. The circle is fluid. The cross is something very targeted, very I don't want to say practical, very material, very concrete, very focused. So that's the cross of matter. And then we also have the semicircle. The semicircle is half the circle, so it's not really spirit, but it's some of it. So we can think of that as the soul. And let's just look at the planets one by one and see what they mean. And if you're still watching, you can give this video a thumbs up, because why not? So the sun is a very easy one and a very logical one. It's just the circle that we talked about. And it has another tiny circle inside it. It can be a sunspot, why not? But it can also be the spark of divinity that vivifies everything. Because what is the sun? In Sanskrit, one of the names for the sun is Savita, which is the vivifier. Without the sun, life as we know it would not exist. So of course, this would be symbolized by the circle of spirit, and that little dot, that focused dot, that spark of consciousness and that spark of light. It can also be the body, that little spark, in a way, because in astrology, the sun is also the body, the constitution of a person, among other things. And then we have the moon. The moon is a semicircle. Show it with a crescent on one side, some show it on the other side. I don't think that really matters. What matters is the meaning. To join semicircles, because of course the moon is very reflective. It shows the reflective nature of the moon. It shows its capacity to absorb and reflect the light of the sun. The moon is, of course, connected to the subjective consciousness, to the experience of the soul in the world. And another interesting thing about the moon is that, along with the sun, it's the only other glyph, planetary symbol, that's made of only one component. So the sun is the circle with a little dot there, which is also a circle, an infinitesimal small circle. And the moon is two semicircles, but they're not unfolded like the sun. They are folded within. So this also shows the more reflective nature of the moon. And the fact that these are the only two celestial bodies that are made up of a single component shows their importance, their significance, also reflected in people's lives. So then we have another symbol that we kind of don't really use in astrology, because I think in a way we take it for granted because it's there. We do use it, however, in human design, it's there on the side of the map. And that is the symbol for the Earth, planet Earth, our home. And it consists of a circle, and inside it you have a cross. Of course, NASA says it's a globe and the meridians cutting it, which is, of course, makes sense, logical. However, if we look at the more esoteric part, we also find a pretty satisfying explanation. So the circle of spirit that has within the cross of matter. So kind of like the spirit having an experience, a physical experience here on earth, because the cross of matter is enclosed within that circle of spirit. Okay, after Earth, we're gonna be looking at planet Mars. What is Mars? We have the circle, then we have a straight line, and then a part of the cross of matter that's oriented upwards. So it's like the spirit is trying to move forward, to push through part of the cross of matter. Of course, NASA says this is a spear because it corresponds to Mars, which is the god of war, okay? But I really like this explanation of the circle of spirit trying to just push through like a plant in spring trying to pierce through the hard sheet of ice and snow. That's what I see the Mars symbol like. It's a, you know, going upward, daring, having some courage, because of course in the northern hemisphere the spring equinox happens in Aries, and that is ruled by planet Mars, of course, Mars. So in other words, it's like the spirit is rising in the cross of matter. It shows the courage, it shows the energy, the strength, and also the struggle, the tension, that battle that is happening for this process to take place. It's also interesting that in mythology, in Hindu mythology, Mars is born of the earth, right? And earth is a training ground. Earth is a training ground for our soul to take on these battles and to experiment. It also shows desire, it also shows springing into action, all these martial qualities. All right. And then what do we have? We have Mercury. This is where it gets interesting, because if we look at Mercury symbol, we see that it's made out of not one, not two, but three components, all three components. That's super interesting. So we have on top the semicircle of the soul, right? The subjective consciousness. We do have under it, and acting as a mediator, we have spirit. And underneath, at the bottom of it all, we have the cross of matter, the physical world. So this shows one of the qualities of Mercury as being the communicator, the interface, the intellect. It also shows its ability to adapt, like it has a little bit of all. Mercury is the planet of symmetry. Mercury is the planet of adaptability. It's a planet of actors, of lawyers, of businessmen. So it's very versatile. It goes through all these symbols, through all these three stages. Of course, the NASA explanation again relates to the deities. I feel like in a way they're trying to fit the explanation. It's like, okay, this is the staff or the caduceus of Hermes, aka Mercury, the god of communication, the emissary, the messenger of the gods in Greek/Roman pantheon, because we all know that the Romans just took the Greek gods and they just renamed them basically. Okay, that being said, let's go on to the next planet, and that is Jupiter. So this is also very interesting. What do we have when we see Jupiter? We have the semicircle and we have the cross of matter. So the semicircle is like the soul trying to rise above, trying to float above the cross of matter in a way. So it's trying to expand. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's a planet of joy, of course. Jupiter is a teacher planet. It's a planet very philosophical, very moralistic, like the natural law planet. So we can see how that ties into the esoteric meaning. NASA says, okay, this might be a hieroglyph, or this might be the letter Z from Zeus with a line through it to abbreviate it, which is like, really? That's a very lazy explanation, NASA. If we look at the next manifestation, the next planetary glyph, we have Venus. And for Venus, we have a circle and a cross of matter. Remember that for Jupiter, it was the semicircle, and for Venus is the circle. So it shows in a way that Venus is maybe a higher manifestation. It's a more complete, a more fulfilling, like the spirit, the circle is complete, and it's exactly on the middle, because Venus is the planet of love. It's the planet of beauty. It's also a teacher planet. It's also a Brahmin, a wise planet. So it shows this balance in a way attained by the spirit. on top of the cross of matter. You can also notice the similarity between the glyph for Venus and the glyph for Mercury, because the only difference is that Mercury also has that little hat, which is the semicircle for the soul, but Venus is in a way a bit more pure. Okay, if we want to say that. We're not going to play favoritism, because I do love Mercury, it's my soul planet, but you have to bear in mind that these were first used as alchemical symbols. So they were looking at some processes, at some transformations. Here they just didn't pull them out of a hat. Okay, so the next planet that we're going to look at, and the last of the first so-called personal planets, is Saturn. And in Saturn, we see kind of like a mirrored image of Jupiter. It's kind of like a reversal. For Jupiter, we have the soul expanding, the soul trying to go beyond the limitation, the constraints of matter. And then for Saturn, we have the soul kind of being underneath the constraints of matter. It's like a seed that's being planted, and it's under wraps in the soil. It's under constraints where it can feel limited, but at the same time it will get disciplined. At the same time it will shed what it no longer needs, and it will eliminate that which is expired, that which is dead, that which is no longer itself. So that's also the essence of Saturn, a planet of elimination. Elimination, illumination, it's only one sound away. Okay, so yeah, Saturn. Oh, I didn't give you the explanation for Venus. So NASA says that the Venus symbol is the hand mirror of the goddess Aphrodite / Venus. Okay, and they say that the symbol for Saturn is the sickle of Uranus, which was the scythe of Uranus, which was also not only the god of death, it was also connected to agriculture. Okay, I'll buy that, but along with the alchemical explanation. Then if we look at the nodes, we have semicircles, and they are like rising up. They're like loops. The north node, Rahu, this is what we're trying to get in this world, what we're not familiar with, and something that we need to rise up a little bit for, that we need to be a little more worldly for, because Rahu is more worldly. And then we have the south node, the loop is downwards, because Ketu is the headless part of the nodes, because you know the nodes are the like a snake, the demon snake, the dragon that was cut in half, and this is the bottom half that's headless. So that's why the loop is inward. K2, the south node, is a more inward point. It brings you towards contemplation. It brings you also towards endings, towards completion, and towards self-realization, they say. So that's why it's also the Omega symbol, the last letter of the Greek alphabet. And for Uranus, we actually have two symbols in existence. One of them is a combination between the glyph for the Sun and the glyph for Mars. The first one, the combination between Sun and Mars, makes sense because numerologically Uranus is the 10th and the Sun is the 1st, so this is kind of like a rebirth of the Sun. And then we have the second depiction where we see this spirit, the circle of the spirit, on top of it the cross of matter, and two that look like semicircles. Here they look more like square parentheses, but just think of them as semicircles representing the soul. And within them, within their confines, we have the cross of matter, and everything is powered by spirit. So this new expression, this new individualization, this kind of crazy lightning intuition type of energy that Uranus has. What is interesting to notice is that the two semicircles look away from matter, because of course Uranus is considered the planet of truth seeking, of extreme individuality. So a kind of like a purified, distilled, more eccentric, why not, influence. And then we have Neptune. Neptune looks quite intuitive. It's the trident of Neptune or Poseidon, the god of the sea and the ocean. And what it is, it's actually the cross of matter intersected with the semicircle of soul. Neptune has this waxing and waning quality, like the moon. So like the sun has a connection to Uranus, the moon has a connection to Neptune. It has this more ethereal quality as well, a more reflective inward quality, as Uranus was more expansive, more extrovert. We can say Neptune is more introverted, and it has to do with a lot of, it can be melancholy, but it can also be spirituality. When I see this Neptune symbol, I sometimes think of a fork, like a tuning fork, because with Neptune, you're tuning in into deep spirituality. In Western astrology, it's also connected to music, tuning into spirit with the cross of matter and the semicircle of the soul. And then we have the lovely Pluto, which also has two representations, two glyphs. One of them is the marriage, the joining together of PL, which is like the first two letters of the planet Pluto, and also the person that the initials of the name of the person who announced its discovery, aka Percival Lowell. Shout out to Percival Lowell wherever you are on Pluto or elsewhere, okay? Yeah, I always like Pluto. It's such a interesting little planet, and I like the fact that they like to demote it from a planet to a dwarf planet, although evidence shows that it's actually a planet. So let's get to the second way that Pluto is drawn, and it's my favorite way because you'll see why. So we see here the circle, the semicircle, and the cross of matter. So what we have is the circle of spirit being cradled by the semicircle of the soul that has managed to transcend, to transform, to come up out of the cross of matter, out of the material realm. Because as we were saying, Pluto is the planet of transformation. This is the planet involved in the process of finding alchemical gold, turning lead into gold. And gold, of course, is the symbol of purity. It's the symbol, it's the metal connected to the sun, to spirit. So it's really beautiful if you think at this metaphor, at this metamorphosis. The cross of matter rising up and transforming into spirit while being embraced by the soul, by the consciousness. So isn't this nice? Aren't you happy that I made this video? I'm very happy because I did several takes of this video. It was initially supposed to be a drawing video. I have some sketches of that. I'll post them at the end. And I did a voiceover with that, but then I wasn't happy. And I just thought, okay, I'll just do it today. I'll just redo the whole thing, and that will be that. And I wanted to show you another thing. If you really like planets like I do, and you also like novelty stuff, I have these stickers that are glittery and that they show all the planets, the outer planets, the moon. You can also see the eclipse, you see. And if you want to get these stickers, they're on a limited edition in my store under the section merch. I also have them. I'm actually looking at the sun and Neptune on my laptop, and I didn't even realize unconsciously I put the sun and Neptune there, and I'm having a sun Neptune opposition. and yeah, on my laptop and in my life for a year. Fun times. Okay, you guys, if you want to know the drill, if you want to, subscribe, go ahead. If you don't, it's your choice. You're not fun, but that's fine. It's your choice. And you can check out the other videos on my channel. You can check out the classes that I offer, private tutorings, readings, all sorts of interesting stuff related to astrology, cards, human design, and the blend I do of this. Okay, see you guys soon. Bye.